We hear a lot about stimulus packages, aimed at big cities with all their fancy tech and infrastructure. But what about rural communities where internet access is spotty at best and smartphones aren't as common? How do you even approach economic stimulus in a place like that?
Mhm.
That's what we're diving into today. A unique plan for a pilot stimulus package, specifically designed for a small rural town, about 1,000 people, limited digital access.
It's a really interesting challenge, and this article we're looking at, implementing a pilot stimulus package in a small rural town without internet or smartphones, it proposes a really cool approach.
Yeah, the thing that jumped out at me right away was how this plan aims to not just boost the local economy and support businesses that are struggling, but also how it really emphasizes community collaboration and trust. Those are some ambitious goals, especially with the tech limitations.
Absolutely, and that's what makes it so interesting. It forces you to think outside the box and consider solutions that you might not immediately think of in our, digital first world.
So let's break this down. The core idea here is to use physical vouchers, like a temporary local currency, only good within the town limits. Each household would get a set amount of these vouchers per person every month, like say $50 per person for 3 months. It's almost like creating a mini localized economy.
Exactly, and that localized aspect is key. By keeping the money within the town, you maximize what's called the local multiplier effect.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What is the local multiplier effect?
Well, essentially, it means that money spent locally has a much bigger ripple effect than money that leaves the community. So imagine a local business owner gets a voucher, right, and uses it to buy supplies from another local business. Then that second business owner uses that same voucher to pay their employees, and those employees spend it at the local grocery store and so on. The money keeps circulating within the community, boosting everyone's income and economic activity.
So it's not just about giving out money. It's about directing that money strategically to make the biggest impact possible on the local economy.
That makes a lot of sense, but this is where I get tripped up. We were talking about a place with no internet or smartphones. How do you actually make this voucher system work on a practical level?
That's where things get creative. The article suggests using these durable, hard-to-counterfeit vouchers with unique serial numbers, almost like little local banknotes. Think watermarks and other security features to prevent fraud.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. It's almost like going back in time, but in a very strategic way. Makes you wonder if maybe we've become a little too reliant on technology for some things.
Maybe. And because you can't rely on digital communication, information spreads the old-fashioned way.
Uh-huh.
Flyers, posters, town meetings. And that actually, strengthens that sense of community involvement right from the get-go.
I love that, how the lack of technology forces them to connect more in person. But let's talk about the big question mark here, funding. How on earth could a small town afford to pull something like this off? It's a valid concern, and the article suggests a few different avenues. Local or regional government grants are a possibility, especially those focused on rural development. Another option is partnering with, donor organizations and NGOs focused on things like alleviating poverty or supporting small businesses.
Makes sense. They also mention looking into philanthropy or even crowdfunding. I can see a pitch about revitalizing a small town really resonating with people.
Absolutely. And there's also potential business partnerships to consider. Larger companies that operate near the town might be interested in supporting this as a way to, support their own supply chains or employees who live in the area. It's a win-win for everyone.
That's true. There are probably more options than you'd think at first glance. I was really intrigued by the revolving fund model they described.
Yes. That's a smart way to stretch those initial funds and create a more lasting impact.
Can you explain how that works?
Sure. The basic idea is to encourage businesses to reinvest some of the money they get from redeeming those vouchers back into community projects. So instead of the money just flowing out of the system, it keeps circulating and supporting those local initiatives even after the original funds run out.
So you're creating this positive feedback loop
Yeah.
where the stimulus keeps generating more economic activity over time. It's a really elegant solution.
It is. It really speaks to the idea of long-term sustainability, which is so important for any program like this to succeed. Instead of a one-time boost, you're creating a system that can support itself in the community for the long haul.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all the pieces fit together. It's like a puzzle where everything just kind of clicks into place. But I'm also thinking about the actual logistics of rolling out a program like this. It seems like there would be a lot of moving parts.
Oh, definitely. Implementation would take careful planning and execution. The article actually lays out this detailed 3-month phased approach, which I thought was pretty impressive. It shows they've really thought about all the steps involved.
So walk me through this 3-month plan. How would it actually work? What would happen in each phase?
Okay, so the first month would be all about planning and getting everything ready. They'd need to do surveys to really understand what people need, what businesses need design, and print those vouchers, put together a list of all the participating businesses, and of course, secure the funding we talked about earlier. It's really about setting the stage for a smooth launch.
Sounds like a lot to cram into 1 month. What about month 2?
Month 2 is all about getting the community involved and actually rolling out the program. They would have these town hall meetings to explain to everyone how it works, distribute the vouchers and the business directories to all the residents, and start getting businesses on board. They also talk about the importance of launching with those high visibility businesses first.
That's smart. Get a few early wins and generate some buzz around the program. It would really help build momentum.
Exactly. It's about showing people that this is the real deal, this can make a difference in their lives. And then month 3 is all about monitoring and feedback.
So they'd be collecting data from businesses about how the vouchers are being used, getting feedback from people in the town, and just seeing what's working and what's not.
Exactly. That feedback loop is crucial, especially for a pilot program where you're figuring things out as you go. It lets them adjust on the fly and make sure the program is actually meeting the community's needs as effectively as possible.
This all sounds great in theory, but I'm sure there will be some bumps in the road. The article does mention a few potential challenges, like some businesses might resist the program.
Yeah, that's a legitimate concern. Some businesses might be skeptical or worried about the extra work involved.
Or maybe they're just used to doing things a certain way and resistant to change in general.
Could be. But the article suggests addressing those concerns by offering early reimbursement for the vouchers, alleviate any cash flow worries businesses might have.
Right. And you could also really highlight the potential benefits. Emphasize that this program is designed to bring them more customers and boost local spending, not create more headaches.
Exactly. It's about presenting it as a win-win and showing them how they stand to benefit. Another challenge they point out is the risk of counterfeiting. Without the digital security of online transactions, you'd have to be extra careful.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
How would you even go about combating counterfeiting in a system like this?
Well, for starters, they recommend those secure voucher designs we talked about, with watermarks, unique serial numbers, and other security features. But they also emphasize the role of community representatives in keeping an eye on the program.
So you'd have people on the ground making sure everything is running smoothly.
Exactly. It goes back to that community trust element we talked about. By involving local residents in the oversight process, you build in those checks and balances and create transparency.
That's really clever. It's like the lack of reliance on technology makes that human connection and community trust even more important.
I think you're spot on. This model isn't just about finding a way around limited technology. It's about leveraging those strengths that already exist within the community. Human interactions, social networks, that sense of shared purpose.
That's a great point. It really makes you rethink your assumptions about what progress and development look like. We tend to think of technology as the answer to everything, but maybe sometimes the most effective solutions are already there, right in front of us, embedded in the community itself.
Couldn't agree more. This plan really highlights the power of local knowledge collaboration and that resourcefulness.
Okay, so let's say this pilot program is a huge success. What's the long-term vision? Can a low-tech approach like this really be sustainable over time, especially as technology continues to advance?
It's a good question. The article does acknowledge that as technology improves in the town, which it probably would, they can start transitioning to more digital solutions. They specifically mention SMS-based payments as a potential next step.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's more about being pragmatic and using the best tools available at any given time.
Right. Finding the right balance and adapting as things change. But what I find really interesting is how they emphasize cooperative business models as a way to build that long-term resilience.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like in practice?
Sure. They're talking about encouraging businesses to pool their resources, maybe invest in shared infrastructure or marketing campaigns that benefit the whole town. Imagine a group of local farmers creating a cooperative to market their products together, or small businesses sharing a delivery service. It's about thinking beyond competition and embracing a more collaborative approach to economic development.
So it's about shifting that mindset from every man for himself to we're all in this together.
Exactly. And that shift in thinking can be incredibly powerful. It allows communities to tap into their collective strengths and create a more resilient and equitable economic system.
We've covered a lot of ground here, and I have to say I'm really impressed with how this plan tackles those unique challenges of stimulating a local economy in a place without much technology. They've managed to turn a potential weakness into a strength.
What's even more impressive is that the source material goes into even more detail. It explores all these different aspects we've talked about with real-world examples and case studies. So if anyone wants to dive deeper, I highly recommend checking out the full article.
Absolutely. But before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. We always associate progress with technology, right? But this plan kind of flips that on its head. It makes you ask, could this model, with its focus on community and tangible value and local collaboration, actually be more resilient in the long run than our tech-dependent systems?
It's a question worth thinking about, isn't it? It challenges our assumptions about what development should look like and reminds us that sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones closest to home, the ones that draw on the power of human connection and community.
It really makes you think about all the possibilities when people come together and they have that shared goal.
It does. And one thing that's so striking about this, it's not just some theory in a textbook. It's based on real-world examples.
Yeah, you mentioned case studies in the article. Are there any that really stand out to you?
Oh, yeah, there are a bunch. But one that comes to mind is this small town in Spain. They were facing some hard times economically after the main factory shut down, and they implemented this community currency system very similar to the voucher idea we've been talking about. And it really helped revitalize their local economy. And it created this incredible sense of solidarity among the people there.
Wow. So there's actual proof that this can work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's not just a temporary fix either. This town in Spain has kept their community currency going for over 10 years now. It's become like a core part of their way of life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really gives you hope that even when things are tough, communities can find ways to not just get by, but to actually thrive.
I agree. And I think that's the big takeaway from all this. It's not just about the economics. It's about human ingenuity and collaboration and that resilience.
We started out asking how you stimulate an economy in a place without a lot of technology. And we ended up exploring a model that goes so much deeper than that. It's about changing how we think about progress and recognizing the power of those community-driven solutions.
This whole deep dive has really made me rethink some things. I hope it's done the same for our listeners.
Me too. And I hope it's inspired them to take a look around their own communities and think, what are our strengths? What are the things we're struggling with? And how can we all work together to build a better future for ourselves?
Because sometimes those most innovative solutions aren't coming out of Silicon Valley. They're coming from people working together in their own towns and neighborhoods.
Well said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of rural stimulus. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and came away with something to think about.
Remember, the potential for change is everywhere, even in the places you might least expect it.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep. Until next time.